right, great. So now we've put in some cues, we've adjusted things, we've looked at our tabs, so we know how to set things up. Let's talk about how we fade some cues and how we can build in fades and stops for cues, right? So our phone ring is a perfect example, right? So if I play my phone ring, we know that it's going to loop for at least 6 times, or it's going to loop exactly 6 times, which is enough time for our performer to get to the phone. But when they answer the phone rings need to stop, right? And we can't program in a set number of times because it may take the performer different amounts of time to get to the phone. So what we need to do is we need to put in some way to stop that phone ringing. And the way that we're going to do that is with what's called a fade cue. The fade cue is right up here in your toolbar, and it looks like a pair of faders. And if you hover over it, it'll say fade. It'll give you a little text icon. And all I'm going to do is click here and drag a fade cue below the phone ring. Now, if I look at this right now, this fade cue really isn't doing anything because it's not connected to any of the cues, right? So what I want to do then is grab the phone ring and drag it into the cue. And you can see that I just clicked on the phone ring cue, and I'm going to drag it into fade the phone ring. Now, I still haven't gotten rid of this X over here, which means that this cue isn't doing anything. I have to tell it what cue I want it to affect a change in, and then I need to tell it what I want it to do. So with the fade selected, I go to audio levels, and you'll see now that I have to, that none of these are active, right? If I just move them a little bit, right, it puts them all at negative infinity, which is fading all the way out. And so now what I've done is I've faded my phone ring. Let's see what this sounds like. And my little X went away, right? My X went away after I assigned a cue to it and affected a change. So if I play my phone ring, and my performer is walking over to the phone, now it fades that phone ring. Now, phones don't fade. Phones just stop, right? So in order to get our phone to just stop, what I need to do is change the action time, right? So I can't change the action time for a recorded cue, but for a fade, I can. And this is listed in minutes, seconds, and then milliseconds. By default, when I double click on it, it's going to say seconds. I'm just going to enter a 0 here and say enter. And now my phone ring is going to fade in a 0 count, which means it'll bump off. So phone ring, ring, and now they answer. Right? So this is really good. Now, the thing that you'll notice, though, is that my phone ring is actually still playing. It still has a few seconds that it's going to continue to play, even though it has no volume. If you would like for that fade out cue to stop the cue playing once it's finished that fade out, you can just say stop target when done. So if I select stop the target when done, it's going to fade and stop the single ringtone wave file. Let's see, this should affect nothing. Ring and answer. And what it did is it stopped the playback of that previous cue. You could imagine that if you have a bunch of long songs or infinite loops, that those will keep playing in the background. And if it keeps playing in the background, it will use up computer resources, memory. And you don't want your machine to sit there and just be playing sound cues that nobody can hear. It just takes a lot of resources that you don't want to dedicate, right? So that is a fade and stop cue. Now, I've gone through and I extended our first song. Let's play our song again. Right, so it's going to go ahead and play. And what I'm going to want to do is at some point in this song, I want to fade it out. But that fade out is going to need to be a controlled called thing. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to drag a fade, right, underneath of my song, right? And now again, I have this X that's over here. And if I go away from it, you'll see that it's a red X, right? I have an X, so what I need to do is which cue do I want to have fade out? And I go ahead and put it in there, right? So now it's going to fade that song. And now what levels do I want to have it at, right? I can set the levels from the target, right? Say apply. And now it's put the song levels that I have originally set for the song in there. And maybe I want them just to fade out. So I'll just go ahead and fade it all the way out, right? And so we're good. Let's play our song. Sounds great. And go. Right? And it faded it out in a 3 count. I can change that by double clicking over here, and let's go ahead and make it a 6-second fade, right? So that's 6 seconds and 0 milliseconds, right? We'll do an escape to stop everything from playing, select our song again and play it. And now I'm going to fade that song. And it faded it more slowly, right? It's more gentle, right? So now also that song is going to continue playing for the next nine minutes. I can go to my song fade and say stop the target when it's done, right? So let's go ahead and stop all of our playback, select our song again, go, stand by to fade out, and fade out, go. Fading in 6 seconds. And it stopped that playback. That's a 14-minute song. It stopped that playback when I was finished, right? Now, sometimes we don't want to even fade a song all the way out. I'm going to go ahead and deselect this. Don't want to stop that. All I want to do is fade the volume down a little bit, right? I want it to be more like underscoring, right? So if I say go, and now I fade it softer in 6 seconds, right? So that is how we affect a fade and a fade stop in a cue. And stop recording screen.